Hi friends, we are here to talk about Summer House Martha's Vineyard, Season 2, Episode 2. I'm going to try to stay on track with the episode numbers. The season, that won't be hard, but I'm really bad with like season numbers and episode numbers, but let's work a little harder. It's Q2 of the year. Let's go. So we start, and it's essentially the aftermath of them getting off of the boat. It was hard for me to kind of pinpoint something in the first parts of the episode that really stuck because they were kind of rehashing and going over everything. They kind of talked about the conversation that Jordan and Jasmine had, and Jordan basically says in her confessional that they're just gonna, move forward, and they've agreed to disagree. And I'm like, well, you don't really have a choice but to move forward because you don't really have a valid excuse, but whatever. Nick is really drunk, so that's fun. I think we got to see a lot of Nick's, because sometimes I feel like I'm losing Nick, but I think I saw a little bit more of his personality when he was drunk. I know that turned into a weird topic for the show that we're going to get into, but on the brighter side of that, I do think that I got to see a little bit more of Nick this episode, but I'm going to get into that. And then we also talk in the kitchen. I like that Amir at least approached Preston, as the group is not together anymore. And he's like, I know you said you were fine, but how are you feeling about your dad? And, Preston talks a little bit more about that. So we get those things established at the beginning of the episode. And since we are kind of talking about what happened last episode, we do get a point where Alex is talking about, his conversation that he had with Shanice, and they're also getting Shanice to kind of fill in on her details of it. And this is obviously interesting, tons of tea. And basically Alex explains, which makes a lot of sense, is very relatable. Like, he was open to getting to know her, but there was some red flags, as soon as they started. Obviously, we already talked about the photo that she took of him and sent to Jordan, their first time linking up. So, yeah, that's a little bit weird. And I think it was just that, she was getting a bit attached. And as Alex is having that conversation, Amir is kind of highlighting those things. And Alex is kind of affirming it like, yeah, she was kind of seeing it a different way than he was seeing it, and those were red flags. And if he hadn't been thinking with his man part, then he probably would have seen that. But hey, and then I do think I was on this show. I don't know if it's like this on all of Summer House, I have to always say, because I don't watch Summer House, but on this show I always struggle with the sex conversations, especially between the house guests, because I feel like there's a lot of focus sometimes on things that are inappropriate, and then there's a lot of conversation about it, and then you see certain stuff that they highlight and you're like, that's a little cringy. So then when they have those conversations as it pertains to sex, and it seems like it's more lighthearted, I guess, I'm like, should I be laughing at this? Like, sometimes I just don't know, but I think it was a little bit lighthearted fun. Maybe not because they're house guests. Maybe that's a little bit inappropriate. But I think the topic around that's what I'll say. Generally, the topic around, because Alex basically says, I'm still open to getting to know Summer. Like, we can still hang out. I think the topic around, but can y'all still have sex? I think that that's a relatable conversation, right? Because if you think about it in the context of things, their issue is that Alex was just looking at it like sex. She was kind of getting attached. And now he's like, I mean, we could still be cool. But the question is, okay, but if y'all have sex, is that going to be weird? So I think that that's an interesting topic. Maybe it should have been explained a little bit more that way, because like I said, sometimes we're having weird conversations about sex on this show, and sometimes they're lighthearted. So I didn't know. But generally, relatable topic. But having this decades party, which I think is fun in theory. I don't really like to dress, so I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but I just don't. I do not live for the costume of it all. I think partially because I'm very lazy. I don't want to go find a costume, and I'm just whatever. I'm just a Debbie Downer. Like, I don't want to be in no damn costume. But they were participating, and it was fun. I did think I always catch these moments of Amir being very shady. I've been saying it since last season, but I did think it was both funny and interesting that, Jasmine was playing this 50s housewife, and he makes the joke of like, well, I thought we were supposed to be in costumes. It's not a costume, because she did this very like homemaker stay at wife thing last season. So, okay, fine. But it always makes me look at Amir a little sideways, because I'm like, does he give this energy to people's face, or is he kind of like shady behind the, like real shady, like shady behind the back type shady? Because it's giving me the latter. They start playing this game, and there's a question of who's the worst dressed. And ironically, at this time, Shanice has stepped out of the room to go pour shots for everybody. And Summer kind of initiates saying that, Shanice is the worst dressed. And pretty much everybody agrees, I guess, for the most part. I was trying to dissect it. I mean, I haven't really seen much of Shanice, obviously. And honestly, when we do see her, she's pretty much in a bathing suit and kind of like, or just like showing her chest. So I don't really see her in fits too often. And I think that's kind of what it is. And it was interesting to hear Summer kind of justify it later and say like she's always in like a tank and some jean shorts, like that's not best dressed. So I was like that kind of goes in line with what I'm saying, but I don't know if I would say worst dressed. And they do kind of get to the point where they're like it's not necessarily bad, but it's not like of the best of this group. Honestly, I don't really see too many fits on any of them that I'm like sickening, to be honest. Like not that they're bad, just like they said, but I've never really seen any of them wear anything where I was like, hmm. So Shanice is crying. I do like that Bria went to go check on her, and she's playing the friend role. Essentially, she's like, forget Summer. Like she don't dress that sickening either. So I'm like, okay, period. And I'm just like, why is Summer so jazzy this summer? But we're gonna get into that as well because I clocked some tea this episode. But it was interesting to hear because I don't feel like Shanice is very. And I was thinking this because I already told you I don't really live for Shanice, and part of it is that I don't know what she's about. Like a lot of it just seemed like she wants to run around and get drunk, which is fine because that's what they're there to do. But I need a little bit more. So it's interesting to hear her say, that she had lost her job and she's going through some money stuff. She couldn't buy new clothes, and Summer knows that. So obviously, Summer saying she's worse dressed kind of hit her hard. So I'm like, okay, that's understandable. In the midst of the game, or like afterwards, when they're like dancing and stuff, Amir excuses himself, and there's a moment where he like texts his girlfriend kind of randomly like, what should I eat next? To me, that felt like a when you're not really having an active conversation with someone and you're doing something, and it is typically someone like that you talk to often, so you're going to have a conversation regardless. You just want to fall back in some way. It kind of felt like, okay, let me just say something like in the routine of the day because we're talking all day anyway. I would assume that's kind of how my relationships go when I'm in them. That's another topic. But yeah, so her being weird about it, like it seems like you're texting somebody else. I mean, I guess I think that's fine as well because it is random. But I do stuff like that, so I kind of understand. What got me though is when he removes himself from the group and he's talking to her, he highlights that he's like, it feels accusatory for you to say it feels like I was texting somebody else, and they kind of have that conversation. But then what turned me off was it felt like Amir then was trying to save his ass by throwing Nick under the bus, because then he's having a conversation with his girlfriend saying, it's fun, but that's not my jam. Like the girls are dancing, and I don't want to be up there like looking around and stuff. I think that would be disrespectful to you because Nick's up there doing it, and I feel like that's disrespectful to his girlfriend. And I'm just like, bad taste in my mouth. Like you don't have to throw somebody else's situation under the bus to make yourself look good. That's what it felt like to me. It felt like he was trying to say something to appease his girlfriend, like, I'm not going to be up there while girls are dancing like Nick is. Like, I would never disrespect my girlfriend like that after she just had an insecure moment with you. So essentially, it just kind of felt like Nick called her out for having an insecure, like, accusatory moment, but then flipped it and was like, but let me also kind of, like, placate her by throwing my friend under the bus. Like, he's doing the wrong thing and he has a girlfriend, but I would never. I thought that was kind of lame. They close this night. Shanice is having a combo with Bria where she's like, I feel like Summer has something against me, but she kind of doesn't really get too much into it yet. And then, I did note that they cleaned up the house at the end of the night. I don't know, just something about that really filled my spirit because that's just kind of what type of girl I am. Like, just seeing a house transform from a mess to clean, like, makes me so happy. It's so satisfying. I also noted that I would love to learn chess. Like the next day when Nick and Noelle were playing, I'm like, that's so dope. Like I do want to learn. I think I'm going to download the app tonight. We then learned that, and I like that we're getting some substance in between the mess. We learned that Jordan has alopecia and she's having a conversation with her dad. I liked it more because honestly, we had gotten a clip that Jordan and Summer and Preston were going to be talking about, Nick being handsy. So I thought that it was going to be like her having a conversation with her dad about that. And Jordan sometimes, the way that she delivers things sometimes bothers me. So I thought I was going to be listening to that conversation, whereas I was not. So that was nice. It was an interesting split to see that some people were going to work out and some people were doing brunch. Because I'm like, I just feel like it would be an obvious choice to go to brunch. Honestly, the whole time that was happening, I kept thinking like, what type of space would I be in, right? Like, do I want to go to brunch or do I want to go work out? Because working out can be very rewarding, and I think that you should get a good workout in, but baby, let's also go eat. Like, I feel that. Then I see the split, and I'm like, the vast majority chose to go work out. Who the hell want to go work out after a lit night? But the vast majority chose to go work out while Preston, Summer, and Jordan are going to eat brunch. And I'm honestly looking at them in the car, and I started looking around the car like, it's only those three? Like, I don't know if I would want to go to brunch with those three. And clearly nobody else did. And the interesting part, even more interesting part, was it appears, because remember last episode I said I didn't clock who went on this Jamaican trip. It appears that it was them. Plus Shanice. If I'm not mistaken, it was just those four. So I'm like, the plot thickens. Like, this is the divide. And honestly, without seeing brunch and even just watching the first episode and a little bit of this one, I could have clocked that. Like, because it just feels like Preston, Jordan, and Summer have this thing. And I hate to sound like because I'm about to go but let me preface it by saying I individually have a lot of moments where I enjoy Preston. I individually liked Jordan at first last season, but then some things kind of turned me off, and she's kind of turning me off this season. And I also individually really liked Summer last season, aside from what happened with the Bria thing at the end. Them together, though, feels like they bring out a weirdness in each other. And there's a weird, cliquey, almost mean girl spirit about their group. That's all I have for right now. I'm trying not to be so because I'm like, I don't want to give them that, but it's like, together is like, so all that to say, I feel like them being the only three to go to brunch and it being that specific three, coupled with the Jamaica thing, it's just very telling. So now that we're getting a lot of back and forth, because we're seeing, the conversations at brunch, we're seeing the workout, Shanice is back to her conversation of, she feels like Summer is jealous of her. She didn't really explain the jealousy thing. I feel like people throw that word around a lot. I think that there could definitely be some weirdness between Summer and Shanice, but people kind of just throw that jealousy word around without any justification. But if that's how she feels. And then it was very interesting on the flip side of things while we're watching brunch, we are hearing Jordan and Preston and Summer, who very, very clearly starts to contradict herself, but we'll get into that, talking about the fact that essentially they're kind of justifying their actions towards Shanice the night before, while also saying, like, we understand her feelings were hurt, but she could have just said that. They're kind of doing that, and that's kind of what I mean by the mean girl-ism thing, because they kind of sit and they seem like the clique that has very strong opinions, and they kind of like stir those pots a little bit, and they're kind of like those girls like, well, I said what I said, you'll just have to feel how you feel about it. Like, they kind of seem like those girls. And as a clique, they seem like they come together and they just are like, exactly, right. Like, they don't necessarily hold each other accountable because they're all agreeable to each other's mess. That's what it feels like to me. However, to their point, they are, even though Summer's about to contradict herself, they are highlighting that, but that's because they're trying to justify. So I really don't want to say to their point because they're trying to justify their own actions. But in justifying their bad actions, they make a good point in saying that Shanice, you don't necessarily see a lot of the substantive side of Shanice, right? Like, when you're hanging with her, you don't really have deep conversations. You don't get that from her. And so because she was hurt, like, they would never know because she doesn't have deep conversations. I think that that's a cop-out, but they've also made a good point. And that's what I was saying. Like, I can't really connect with Shanice because I'm not getting much personal from her. But I feel like maybe the tides might be turning with her separating herself from a group like that, per se, and being able to have more in-depth conversation with the masses of the house. That's just what it appeared to be this episode. And they also have a conversation, like I said, I'm very weird with the sex talks, but it just felt weird. It would happen in real life. Like I'm not knocking Preston for it because I probably would ask as well, but I just don't know how to take it, like I said on this show. But I let it happen, and Preston basically asked her, how was the sex with Alex? And she basically explains, that it wasn't as passionate as she would have wanted, and it kind of just was what it was. They asked, Alex, and he didn't even want to give a response. But the whole time she's characterizing it kind of as it wasn't, and not that she was being messy necessarily, but because she really wasn't. But it just felt like, okay, if it wasn't all that, like, then what are you so upset about? Like, why were you in such a tizzy as soon as y'all got on the trip and calling him an F boy and all this? Like, what's the problem? But while we're on that, we jump back to the gym, and they're talking to Noelle about it, and she didn't even realize that Summer and Alex had sex. Like, she didn't hear it at the table, and it was hilarious. Because I'm thinking, like, well, what the hell was she doing? Because we all gagged when Summer said that Alex was inside of her, but then they showed this clip of Noelle eating the crab legs, which was just hilarious. But yeah, she does even like like she had no idea, and that's what I said last episode. I'm like, why was Summer allowed, especially with those feelings she had, why was she allowed? Because she gave Noelle the okay to go talk to Alex. Like, that was weird. And Noelle's like, I didn't even know they had sex. Like, that's weird. Why would she not have disclosed that to me? And I'm like, this is just tea. But back to brunch, so I can get an answer to my question about Summer. Like, why are you so upset if the sex wasn't good? Because that's just how I feel. But Jordan does say, "Well, girl, like the way that you were reacting kind of raised some questions. Like, what the heck is going on here?" And again, Summer claims like, "Well, I wasn't like I understood what it was, and I was never really checking for Alex like that." But I'm like, that doesn't track. Like the math is not mad thing. Like, she's literally saying like, I knew it wasn't a thing, like it wasn't serious. And I'm like, so I'm just confused. My notes literally say ... space how question mark question mark question mark. So everybody gets back to the house, and Noelle and Summer kind of check in with each other since they were at different events. And Noelle's like, she says at least 14 times, because you could tell she's flabbergasted. She's like, I knew that y'all hung out, but I didn't know y'all had sex. Like, she said it over and over and over. And Summer's kind of talking around it like, well, yeah, girl, we did, like, whatever. But she gets very buck in her confessional because Noelle lets her know, like, well, girl, I don't play like that. Like, if I would have known, I never would have said I wanted to kick it with Alex, because I definitely expressed, like, genuine interest in hanging with him, but you didn't tell me that very important piece of information. And Summer gets very spicy in her confessional. And she's like, well, girl, like, now you're getting irritated that I didn't tell you, but I told you we hung out. Like, that means that we did things. So, like, I don't owe you that explanation. And I'm like, but that's your friend asking for the okay to go talk to a guy. So it's not about owing anybody anything. Your friend came and asked you a question and you lied. So you're weird. Like, at the end of the day, like, why are you getting buck? And then she even turns it and tries to justify it, or switch the narrative, I should say. And she's like, you're getting irritated with me, but you're the one asking to hang with a guy that I hung out with. And I'm like, okay, so now you're making that an issue? Like, that's an issue now? Because you obviously didn't say that to Noelle when she asked you. So I'm like, Summer's the type of girl, she don't know where she stand. And she didn't get what she wanted from the Alex situation, so she's trying to act like there's nothing there, it didn't bother her. And that's why she just ran it through her friend Oop, like, okay, girl, whatever, I don't care. But she clearly very much so cares. And that takes me back to the brunch of it just feeling very ironic, though they made a point. It's very ironic for them to say that, basically Shanice doesn't have substantive talks, she doesn't have deep talks, because Summer, you're not even forthcoming and transparent about your feelings. So how can you talk about Shanice's? But what, Preston and Jordan? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, homegirl. At the end of the episode, we get the guys, talking downstairs. And Preston does highlight to Nick, like, did you notice you can get a little bit handsy? And I think he is being, very soft with giving it to him, because he's giving it to him as a friend, not necessarily messy, though it did feel messy once he threw Jordan and Summer in. And he's like, the girls talk to me. He's like, Jordan and Summer, for example, I think they'll come talk to you. I kind of feel like that was their story to tell, and it just comes off as messy because it's like, well, the three of y'all were at brunch today. That's obviously what y'all were talking about, and now you're coming back and telling me. So that will make me feel very. It's an uncomfortable thing anyway, but it would feel kind of messy. Like maybe they had a messy conversation about it. That's just my opinion. I do think that he was delivering it well, and obviously, Alex and Amir jump in, and they're kind of co-siding it and letting him know, like, and everybody was very clear, including Jordan in her confessional. He's not inappropriate, but he gets handsy. I don't mind that conversation. I think it's important that he should know that. But he definitely, obviously, felt very taken aback. And then they have a brief conversation where Preston asks, like, or says, like, I don't know if your girlfriend will be upset about that. But Nick is like, well, no, because she knows me and she trusts me. And I'm not super. I think I said this last season. I'm not super invested. Like I get it. It's definitely there. It's definitely obvious to be like how he got a girlfriend, but he be acting like this. But to me, he is very just like flirty. Like he just seems like a very innocent flirty to me. I don't really know how else to characterize it. Like that's just what I see. Like, do I think it's appropriate? Would I want my man to be doing it? No. Do I think it gives him a pass? No. Do I think it's okay for him to be super touchy? Of course not. But I don't see it as him being malicious. That's all I'm saying. So I like that distinction and that grace was at least given while holding him accountable. And it was just interesting. I would like to hear more. That's what I mean by we got a lot from Nick, even, unfortunately we were talking about this topic, but we got a lot more because he says like he hangs out with Summer and Jordan all the time, and they've never said that to him. So why wouldn't they have said that? And so that makes it feel a little bit more messy. You know what I'm saying? So to the point where he goes up and he's attempting to ask Summer about it. I don't remember the rooming situation, but for whatever reason, Summer and Jordan ironically look at guys so hilarious. They are in the bed together, and Nick, is pacing around the room. He's a little uncomfortable to the point where he's like, well, I don't know. Like, have I ever made you guys feel uncomfortable? And literally when I saw that, I was just like, oh, because I'm just like, you could tell like he obviously does not want to make them feel uncomfortable, and I'm just like, it's obviously very. I can just imagine that being a very weird talk to have. It's with housemates, with friends, and especially people that you feel like you hang out with and you had no idea there was an issue, right? And they were just talking about it. So I just felt for him in this moment. But I like that he was able to approach it, and people were holding him accountable. Jordan said you do get a bit handsy, and obviously I'm sure we'll get the tail end of this conversation next episode. So all around, I think that it's a good conversation that needed to be had. And I think so far it's being handled pretty well. Obviously, there's some caveats, but I think it's being handled okay. So I think another good episode. So much happens in these episodes, child. But I followed, and there are some links happening, right? So I'm liking that. I like some story. I like me some dynamic. Y'all know me, so I enjoyed it, and I think that everybody is playing a good role this season, meaning they're not getting lost for me. Like I'm seeing everybody. Whereas I thought Nick was getting lost. Okay, I'm seeing him. Like I'm seeing some humanity from these people aside from the huge amounts of chaos that we get in these long episodes. So because episodes feel long, honey, because there'd be so much happening. But I'm entertained. So we will see what happens in the next one.